Okay, good. Right. Take two.
Take two.
Right. First question, Anabel. Have you tried peer review assessment as a classroom activity before you used Turnitin Peer Review?
No, before using Turnitin, I haven't had any experience on peer review in general.
Okay. All right, second question. In the first place, what actually inspired you to try out Turnitin Peer Review?
Yes. Basically, what I realize is the feedback process with the students is very, very time-consuming. So usually what I was doing is giving them individual appointments to go through their feedback. And at the end, we have a kind of an informal group conversation about what was happening with the feedback I gave them. And I realized they had very good points to provide to their classmates about what they have learned about doing the project or whatever assessment we were doing. But by that time, it was too late. They had their marks, and nothing had happened for that specific assessment in terms of improving the assessment as a consequence of the feedback.
Okay.
So that's why I said, okay, let's try to do this peer review that between them, so I have not this overwhelming activity of doing the feedback myself.
Right.
Well, I thought it was going to be easier. So
Right. Okay.
we'll
come. Okay. Okay. Just as an aside, how did you know about the peer review facility within Turnitin?
Because we have the training on different trainings here about Blackboard and tricks of the trade.
Oh, right.
And they turn it in. Yes, in the MBA, they asked me to submit the dissertations going through that process.
Right.
So that's when I realized, okay, so the program director told me, yes, we need to just turn it in to check plagiarism.
Oh, right, yeah,
on this.
but where did you see the actual, did you see the peer review just in there, or did you come to a training session on it?
I'm sure I came to a training session.
Okay.
Yes,
Right.
in the college, yeah.
Great, thank you. Right, this is number 3 is more in-depth question. It says, can you describe how you set up the peer review process with your students? How many times did you review their assignments? And how many times did the students peer review each other's work?
Okay.
So,
I've been trying the setup of this peer review in different ways in the last 3 semesters. So I'm going to describe you the last version.
okay. Right.
So for the last version, what I have done is to say at the middle of the deadline, before the deadline, I establish a peer review that is formative. It doesn't have any marks. So the students have to submit their progress on their research report. And everybody has to do one peer review to any of the system assigned indeed one peer review for each student that have submitted.
Okay.
And I also go through the documents. So in this formative peer review assessment, the students will receive 2 feedbacks, one from a classmate and one from me.
Okay.
So that's the first part, and it doesn't count to the final marks. It's just an activity for them to have some feedback before they submit.
Okay.
Then the final submission, in that final submission, part of the marks includes 10% indeed, is the actual peer review to somebody else's work.
Right.
So in that second assessment, when they submit, everybody has to submit and conduct at least one peer review. And I assign also a second peer review that is not compulsory, and the system doesn't assign the peer review, the report. The student can select whichever document they want.
Right.
So in that way, minimum they are going to receive feedback from 2
Right.
persons, but some of them will receive more.
Okay.
Okay, more than 2.
Why did you force them to do one peer review and then allow them to choose to do the second one? Why did you do that?
The compulsory one is to ensure that everybody is doing the process,
Okay.
and that everybody goes through this analytical activity
Right.
of analyzing what is going on in the in the assessment.
Right.
And the optional one is because all of them have different topics.
Right.
So even if they are so if they are interested in a specific topic, they can learn a little bit more about that one. For example, some students are doing cloud computing, some students are doing mobile technologies, and other students are using business intelligence. So every student is doing a research report in different topics, and by selecting another report, they are learning more about that specific topic.
Okay,
so
that's
the second
interesting,
peer
yeah.
review is not to do an analytical process of how to evaluate that document. It's just to learn how others have done their job or their report in a different topic, and they learn from that.
Okay. Just as again another follow-up question, was the one topic that all the students gravitated to?
Everything has to be around information systems, because that's the module, and what I told them is that they have to develop, in the brief, there are some guidelines about, it has to be a technology trend, and they have to...
Yeah, no, that's not quite what I meant. It's like when they come to peer review, choose their peer review of the topic, they look through the other students' topics. Did they all go for one topic, or did there was a mixture?
There is a mixture, and that's also something that I am aiming in this peer review, that once every single student is doing in-depth research in the specific topics, when they are doing the peer review, they are learning from the other topic.
Right. Okay,
so they are learning not only how to evaluate and assess that report, but they are also learning a new topic.
Yeah, so they're like mini case studies that they can go in and have a
which
look
would
at.
be difficult to make them read if it's not part of the coursework. But in that way, everybody is reading something that is really interested, and my assumption is that, of course, all the research reports are quite interested because they've been putting a lot of time and effort to put together that report. So, yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thanks. Moving on. You might have answered this question already, but I'll ask it again anyway. It says, what was the main purpose of trying out the Turnitin peer review? What was your main aim, if you could just identify? I mean, you've talked a lot about it, but is there one main thing that you were trying to get out of this?
Yeah, the main aim that I was targeting was to help the students to improve the quality of their reports by doing this, because I was not happy without doing these activities before. I spent a lot of time marking and giving them comments in the reports, and some of the students, if they pass, they were just happy and they don't bother to see all my comments.
Right, yeah.
So, and basically with those comments they will know how to improve next time. So I thought, well, that's not good. And also, if I'm spending a lot of time giving them feedback in the document, I was also expecting that that they will be able to improve somehow. But if I don't do this intermediate feedback, it's too late. So it was not fair that, yes, I gave them a lot of feedback, but so what? They cannot improve anything anyway. So it's too late. So I thought it's not fair neither not to give them the opportunity to tell them, okay, this is not working well, you are not doing analysis in here, or this is the whatever feedback I was
I'll come
giving.
back to whether you think it actually worked or not in a sec, but moving on. What was the main thing that you were trying to get out of this? What was your main aim, if you could just identify? I mean, you've talked a lot about it, but is there one main thing that you were trying to get out of this?
Yeah,
Next question. Was it easy to set up the peer review in Turnitin?
Technically, it's very easy to do it. But
Right.
all the logistic that you have to do, it takes you time. And
Right.
of course, you have to think on backup in case the technology is not working.
Right.
And I thought it will take me less time to do the feedback. But actually, while I'm learning how to do it, it's taking me more time.
Okay.
However, after 3 semesters of trying in different ways, I really hope that next semester is going to be smooth and easier to do it. But yes, the learning curve of setting the actual peer review and managing all the logistics around that,
Yeah.
well, it is.
I mean, you're somebody who's very used to using technology, IT, and systems like that. Do you think from somebody who's coming, who doesn't have that experience, would be able to set up a Turnitin peer review?
I think so, because it's already integrated with the Blackboard, that make it easier. The second thing is that there are very few steps in the Turnitin to set it up, the peer review. What is really challenging is to know which questions you want the students to answer.
Okay,
So
well, I'll
that's
come
the
on
part.
to that
Yes.
in a second.
So that's the difficult part. But
Yeah.
setting the options in the technical
Good.
part is not a problem.
Okay, good. All right. Next question, going a bit similar but a bit different. What problems or issues did you have in setting up the Turnitin peer review? Were there some specific problems? I'm thinking about deadlines or stuff like that, or anything looking back on it now.
Yes, the first semester I was unsure about my marking criteria, and that make it very complicated. Because when I set up the questions, I use the ones that comes with the Turnitin. I didn't personalize. I just used some of the questions that seems relevant to what I was doing, and it was an issue. Another issue was about the deadlines, but between submission of the proper report and the actual peer review, because you have to set up first the submission of the report, and then you set up the peer review for that report. But this term, I realized that is not a problem. There is one option where you can change the dates, so you can, in the same day, you can set up everything, and it's not a problem.
Okay.
But yes, you need to know that.
Knowing what you did, you actually got them to do some of the peer review in class time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, obviously, you did that for a reason.
Yes, and another problem additional to that was you need to ensure that the students do submit their reports, because if they don't submit a report, of course they will not get, well, you can set up the options, but they will not get any feedback, and it's not fair that they don't submit any progress. And the reason I allocate some time, class time, for doing the activity is because, of course, the students, some of them are not familiar with the tools.
Right.
So I didn't want to tell them only you have to do this without having show them how to do it.
Yeah.
So if I was there in the lab with them, then I will be able to answer any questions they have in the moment.
Yeah.
And that was for the formative peer review.
Right.
For the final one, that was in their own time.
Okay.
So I told them, now it's set up, you know how to do it, you should know how to do it, so there you go, you do it on your own time.
Right. Okay, so that's why you went for it once, almost as a trial run, doing the formative, so they're more familiar to do it in their own time.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
great.
Something important as well is that for this formative assessment, this term, technically everything went well. Right. The only problem I have is that some of the students, the report they submit was very basic. They haven't done much progress. So when a student received that report, it was so little to review that you barely could give them any feedback.
Right.
So in the brief for next term,
Yeah.
I'm going to specify which sections they should submit as a draft
For the
for the formative
piece of
activity.
work. Okay.
So in order to ensure that at least everybody has progressed at least up to a specific section.
All right, so you're going to set some minimums that minimum
Exactly.
things they must have done. Okay, good. All right, thank you. The next question kind of relates to that as well. Did you have any technical difficulties when using Turnitin Peer Review? Did anything crash or any problems? Any technical things that didn't work?
This semester, I didn't have any problems at all. I was very lucky because no problems in terms of the formative assessment was fine. Everything was working.
Okay.
And for the final peer review, nobody told me or reported they had problems using it. So I assume that it was quite free of problems. Yeah.
Great. That's what I like to hear.
Yes.
Number 8. And again, you kind of answered this before. Did you allow students to choose assignments to review, or were they decided by you? Why did you choose this option? Well, you've kind of answered that already, really, haven't you?
Yes, in
so
the formative...
Just to summarise then, so in the formative one, the students reviewed one of their peers, and then in the final submission, they reviewed one of the peers and
assigned by the system.
Assigned by you, to turn it in, and then they chose a second one.
Yep.
I suppose my comment then is, did you actually check the peer review process? Did you go and have a look at what the students had written?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because as I told you, for the final, I assigned 10%. So in the system, it's very easy to see the comments because you have the originality button, the grade button about what you are putting in, how you are marking that report, and then the next button is peer review. And if you click in that button, immediately you see all the feedback that report received.
Okay.
So you can see together all the comments.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to check and if they are doing proper job. And I was amazed. They did very good job this term.
Really?
Yes, they put very valuable answers to the questions. And few of them, half of the group, it's a small group, but half of them actually put comments in the text, not only answering the questions.
You didn't ask them to do. Yeah.
I didn't ask them to put comments. I just asked them to answer the questions.
So literally, they were marking one another's piece of works and
very nicely.
Right.
Yes. So I guess that as they saw my comments in the formative, I add comments in the text, explaining why something was not clear or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think some of them were like it or were motivated to do it as well, which was a surprise because I didn't ask for that.
Yeah. Okay. And again, my follow-up question is again very difficult to answer, but I don't know if it's. Did you get any feedback from the students about them doing that as a process? Did you notice them talking about it to one another or in the classroom? Or, I mean, potentially, though, they could have collaborated with one another, couldn't they? They could have said to, right, I'll choose your assignment, you choose mine, we'll give ourselves fantastic reports. I mean, they wouldn't have said that to you, but did they raise any issues about...
There was only one student that pick up the work of her best friend,
right,
and put wonderful comments without support.
Yeah, all right. So it did happen a little bit, yeah.
Yes, it happens in one student for one specific report, but apart from that, all of them were very honest and very constructive feedback.
All right. How did you deal with that?
I spoke with the student and I told her, okay, look at this. And I, in this case, as it was the first time that I was putting some marks into that, I didn't penalize that.
Right.
But I did actually spoke with her.
Okay.
So,
because that is an issue with peer review. A lot of lecturers say that to me, you know, that the students will just go and collaborate with one another and give themselves good grades. Oh, if you give me this, I'll give you that, sort of thing. You don't really think that was happening?
No, that was not happening. And maybe is related to the fact that I told them that if at the beginning of this peer review I told them that they were not making a favor to the student if they were just saying things without having an evidence or without providing evidence of why they were saying that,
right,
or without being honest.
Yeah.
So, and I told them that whatever they said, it was not going to impact into the marks that I will give the other student.
Okay.
What it will impact is in their own marks. The 10% will
Right.
be affected if they don't do a proper review.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you say, in this case, this lady, I should have subtract some marks, for example.
Right.
Yes, but as it was one in the whole group, I thought it was just not relevant to do it. If most of the students were just not doing proper job, then I will say, okay, then I need to start penalizing these things. But it
was just an exception.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Where did I get up to now? That was. Right. The next question, again, I kind of know the answer to this, but anyway, was it difficult to write the peer review questions? If so, why?
Yes. Well, as I told you at the beginning, the main aim it was to help the students to improve their marks.
Right.
And all this process has led me to better understand my own marking criteria, because setting the questions was quite challenging. What was I really asking them to observe in that report? What is good or what is bad, based on what they were going to answer those questions. So setting up the marking criteria is very important, because you need to know why you are assigning that assessment, and you need to know what is the focus of the assessment, so everybody is focused on that, and the specific guidelines. So if it is a research report, of course you have to specify, okay, the type of sources that you are expecting, the type of sections or conclusions that you are expecting, or So all these elements that you are going to be observing then will help you to set up the questions, and they need to be related to the marking criteria you gave them in the brief.
I mean, that's really hard, because you've got this marking criteria, and in the marking criteria you've got things like, you know, critically evaluate and analyse. But if you just ask a student, did you critically evaluate or did you analyse, they don't understand the question.
Yes.
So how did you must have had to think about the types of questions you were asking. Did you think did you achieve what you set out to achieve, do you think?
I think now it's a little bit better, but it's not perfect yet.
Right.
I think I still need to work a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I believe the formative peer review helps a lot in that sense.
Right.
Because when I tell them, okay, is the topic clearly explained in the introduction, with definition of the main terms that need to be understood in order to understand the topic.
That helps, yeah.
That helps. And then they said, so they read their peers' report, and then they said, okay, no, this, I don't know what this report is talking about, or yes, it is very clear.
Okay.
Because he is mentioning this and that.
Right.
So, yes, the questions need to be very well thought, so they are not confusing and they are specific to achieve.
And even the language that you use is, you know, for the students to understand. It's difficult, I know.
Yes, so for me it's like I have the marking criteria with the different levels, but the questions are more specific to the structure of the report.
Right.
So I said in the introduction, these are the elements that I'm expecting.
Okay.
In the literature review, I'm expecting these things. So I write 3 or 4 questions about what is a good literature review for any topic, and then they have to see that in that specific report. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of the rationale for setting up this, but it is difficult. It is difficult.
Okay.
And that's why I thought the formative as peer review was very valuable, because in that one they realized, yes, right. Here I'm not connecting this with the previous paragraph.
Right.
So why we are mentioning this here? So they learned that.
Okay, good. Moving on. What do you think were the benefits of Turnitin peer review to the students? And this is in 2. I want you to think about the answer in 2 parts to this. Did it improve their grades? Right. And did it improve their understanding of a topic? Now, they're not necessarily the same thing.
Yes.
First of all, did you think, at the end of the day, did it improve their grades?
I think for most of them, they did. And curiously, the students that didn't submit a good draft, that the draft was very poor and we were not able to give them too much feedback because there was not really much to read, to review, those students were struggling to improve their marks. But apart from those, most of the students, it was quite big change for the final report.
But then you don't know whether that change would have happened anyway. It could have happened. It's hard to say. I know.
I think some of that change you don't know, but some of that change is because of the peer review, the formative assessment, because some of them submitted almost a finished report.
Right.
So for them it was just to improve that version.
Right.
So I think that's ideally what should be happening, that they submit almost a finished report, you give them feedback, and then they submit the final one.
So, but then the ones who submitted that would have been the strongest students.
Yes.
So do you think it's helping the stronger students more than it's helping the weaker students? Or is that too hard to judge?
It's hard to judge because I have one student that didn't submit the first draft.
Right.
And at the end, he submitted one of the best reports.
Right.
So yes, we have not contradictions, but there is not really hard evidence to say, yes, absolutely, this is definitely helping everybody. No, it depends on individual cases. So in general, we can say yes, but there will always be some exceptions for, yes, but students didn't submit a good draft, they didn't have the opportunity of the feedback, so their final report was poor, but we don't know if they had submitted the peer review will be better. I don't know.
Okay.
And
but the second half of the question then is not so much about the grades.
Yes.
But do you think it improved their understanding of the topic?
I think the analytical process they went in order to submit some comments helps them to learn more about the information systems.
Right.
One, and second, some of them were more able to understand more about exactly what is this critical thinking aspect of why something is more interesting than another. So they could read the report and say, oh, this was very interesting.
Right.
And they can immediately spot what are the elements that make that report
Okay, so
good.
that sounds very positive.
Yeah, and I think that's a positive thing. And in the other hand, if they are good students, they submit nice report, and they got the report from someone that was not that good, they immediately say, okay, I can see that my report is better than the other one as well.
Right.
So, and why?
Right.
See, so in both ways, they also learn why things are happening.
Okay.
And it's reflected in the marks.
Right. Excellent. Okay, moving on. The similar question, but it's slightly different. This time is what do you think were the benefits to you rather than the students of this? Not the minuses. What were the actual benefits? What did you benefit from this?
For me, it was very satisfactory to see some improvements. The second one is it was easier to assign an A, B, or C to the reports, because through all this process, you can see, you can clearly see the value of each report.
Right.
And the evidence to assign those marks.
Right.
Sometimes it's it's very subjective how you assign a mark to the reports.
So at the end of the day, you've got to give an A, B, C, D, or what have you, and you felt
more
confident in giving that final grade,
and more fair about doing it, because you have many elements in order to say yes, it's an A because this. Right. So you have all the elements there. Okay. And in some cases, once I finish my marking, I try to do that process. I finish my marking and then I go and check the peer reviews.
Right.
That was the last step, checking the peer reviews. Yeah, right. And in most of the cases, everything was in line with the students' thoughts and feedback.
Right. Okay.
So you feel, yes, I was very happy because I said, okay, yes, I'm being marking this fair in my view, but also from students' perspective.
Okay.
So
good.
which is good. Exactly, it's a kind of a revalidation of whatever you are doing.
Did you think you actually got a better understanding of your own marking criteria by doing this? Definitely. Because even some of the students, as I told you, they were very critical and they did very good job. And some of them were making some comments that even I haven't spot at some point. And I said, oh, that's true, and I haven't make a note on that. Oh, right, okay.
So I go and check and say, yes, that student is right. This is missing in here, or he did add something extra that I haven't spot.
Oh, right.
So it's very valuable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the benefits for me.
Good. All right. That's students and yourself. Another related question, which is, do you think the students actually enjoyed? It probably sounds from what you've said they had to do more work.
Yes.
But would you say they actually enjoyed this process?
I think few of them did enjoy the process in terms of learning what to do, because half of the group is exchange students. Right. So some of them were not sure what was going on how to do it. Right. But by reviewing what others have done, they were reassured about, yes, I'm going in the right way. Okay. But I have to improve this or that. Yeah. So for some of them, it was interesting to see their classmates' work. Yeah. Because you always compare yourself with others. So I think that's basically the reason. Right. But what I'm absolutely sure is that for all of them, it was too much work.
Right.
Yes.
Too
much work. Because we do the peer review, the formative peer review, and then the final peer review. So for them, the formative, if it doesn't count, what is the point of doing it? Right. So literally, if it doesn't have any specific marks, they don't see the point of doing it.
Even they can't see the connection that might result in a better mark.
For them, it's just more work that is not marked.
Right.
Which is interesting. I thought it was better not to be marked, but well.
Okay.
That's what few students comment that at the end.
Okay, which follows on to my next question is, would you use peer mark review again? Now it sounds from what you've already said that you're planning to use it again.
Yeah.
But if so, would you do anything differently, and what changes would you make? So like on that specific issue, you just said, well, it felt to many students it was like extra work. Can you cut it down anymore, or was that not possible? Or can you allocate marks for the formative bit, or I don't know.
I don't want to allocate marks to the formative because then it's not formative.
Yeah, true.
It's gonna be
yeah.
a complete assessed part of the work, and I don't know. I'm
so
not sure about
you don't think
that.
you would do things differently next term?
They have to realize that it's for their own benefit to do this activity. What I will try to check for next term is that the time frame for this is different, to allow them a little bit more time to finish with the draft.
Okay.
And then a little bit, at least 2 weeks between the draft, the feedback, and the final submission.
Okay.
So to allow them enough time
to manage that time
exactly.
A bit better,
That's one of the things that I want to improve. And the second is that I'm going to be very specific what the draft should contain.
Okay. Yeah.
So if they haven't finished a draft that is reasonable with all these specific sections, better don't submit, because then it's not fair that somebody receives that and they don't learn anything, they cannot feedback anything. And
so if they don't submit, then they can't review. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
So they will be able to review somebody else only if they submit.
Okay. All right. Getting there. Nearly last couple of questions. Would you recommend Turnitin peer review to other lecturers? If so, why?
Yes. I think I would recommend it, but I will also say that you need to really be careful about which activity, because when you are designing the overall module, you need to think carefully how you are using technology and how you are using peer review and how you are using videos and the balance between all this. Otherwise, the students will get overwhelmed with too many. If all the lecturers are doing peer review, could be crazy for the students.
Right, okay.
So you need to evaluate the type of assessment that you are doing and why you are doing it.
Okay.
Just to really make sense of that.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, that's an interesting point. Have you actually raised the fact that you're using Turnitin peer review with your program team at all? Does the rest of your team know that you're using it?
No.
No.
I'm going solo.
True, and I know that, but you know, as more people may become aware of it, then maybe that's an issue that it has to be flagged up. That, I mean, is it in the documentation of the course?
At the moment I haven't discussed this with anybody, and it's not an issue at the moment. And the only time that I have told some of my lecturers, colleagues about this peer review is in the tricks of the trades sessions. But apart from that, no.
Okay. Does the program, what's it called, the program director, do they know you're using it?
Yes, the program director knows.
Okay,
yes.
Right.
And
were they interested?
The program director of the postgraduate course knows, but not the program director in the undergrad. No, he doesn't know. Well, we haven't never had this conversation.
Okay.
Yes, no.
All right, but it hasn't raised any issues at all. Okay. Okay, that's basically it. My last question is: do you have any other comments you'd like to make about the whole process? Anything I've missed that you feel like?
I think the most important point of the peer review is that not only the students learn a lot about what others are doing, but I also learn from them. So I think it's a win-win situation, because you are in constant analysis of what is going on with the group. And for me, the peer review has been a way of improving my assessments, my marking criteria, and understanding better what I'm really asking these students to do, what they are learning. So how can I improve that? Because at the end, what we want is them to learn something and to be able to improve their marks as a consequence. But the point is not the marks, the point is the learning process. So as a learning process, I'm very happy with this peer review activity.
Okay.
That's it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Let's see if I can stop all of this now. Okay, that was 41 minutes.
Okay.
It took a bit longer than I expected. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Right, okay. Right, okay, how do I stop this?
In this one?
No.